Story Hunters, the podcast about storytellers around the world.
Is there any story which lives in you right now and is digging and working on you?
So I've been involved with my parents running a monthly storytelling session, which really evolved into a biographical storytelling and talking about everybody's families. And last month we worked on the Demeter and Persephone myth, and now we're preparing Maria, the Odyssey, episodes of the Odyssey. So that's really something that I'm kind of living with at the moment. But what I thought was funny was my mother was really the leader of the Persephone myth, and she was saying, oh, it's miraculous storytelling magic. Once you start working on something, it's everywhere. And I was like, it's just a coincidence, it doesn't mean anything. And then as soon as we arrived here to where I'm staying, my mother-in-law has a huge picture of Persephone holding a pomegranate right in my face. So I was like, oh, fine, you're right, mother. So yeah, we're just really in the world of Greek mythology at the moment. So just living with that and seeing how amazing how we've commented in this group before these ancient stories, and then everybody's different. Everybody has very different families from different countries, and yet there's something universal in the experience of family and story that holds us all together. So that's something that's alive in me at the moment.
Well, I'm actually doing a course on Persephone and Demeter right now with Nancy Mellon. So Persephone is very much alive for me as well. And I would say one reading that is new for me is Persephone as a story of migration. So I belong to those people who keep longing for home and longing for Spain and spending long winters in Finland. It has always been like that, so that's not a new pattern. But the new thing for me was this realization that Persephone keeps going to where she wants to be, where she wanted to be, and coming back to the underworld. And over the years, she starts being changed by the underworld also, and she has a family there and everything. And it really made me think about this part of migration, that is that as much as you might feel that you want to live somewhere else, where you actually live starts working on you and creates a new you, which doesn't necessarily fit very well in neither places. And I know Philippa has worked a lot with these themes also of belonging and unbelonging and everything, but I hadn't quite seen it in Persephone before. And that has been a fascinating journey right now. So I'm quite fascinated with the older Persephone now and what she learns along the way.
I love these conversations. I wish we were together physically in one space. I just, but for me, it's not a particular story as it is a theme that has run through my life, and it's a theme of grief. And I'll tell you, it started, I think, when I was quite young. I must have been about 10, and we had this club at school where someone taught us African traditional dances of Uganda. And one day he taught us this dance, and it was a funeral dance. And it was a dance that was danced by my mother's people. And the drum they played was actually a pot, an earthenware pot, which they hit with a wad of banana fiber. But the man didn't stay, and I never really learned the dance. But I remember at that time my mother was doing her research, and I went back home and I was so excited, and I told her about this dance. And then in 2012, when my mother passed away, I so wanted to do that dance for her, but I didn't know it. And Christianity and the church has taken some of those things away, and they were seen as not of God, which I wonder, because I think they were ways in which people grieved. And I think we don't know how to grieve well these days. And so every once in a while, this thing pops up in me and I want to learn the dance and I want to get a pot. And then in 2018, I was in Durban and there was a storytelling festival, and this Kenyan friend of mine, Mshai, came and she told this story of Mekatilili, who was an old Giriama woman who became a freedom fighter when she became a grandmother. So she was an older woman, and because she was an older woman, the men would now listen to her, and she led a fight against the British, but she led it through a dance, and in that community they had a funeral dance called the Chifudu dance, and it was led by the older women. And it was led by the older women because, you know, they can hold pain. They've lived, they know these things. And they start the dance and they lead the dance. And she told this story. And you know when you hear that story and you know it's your story because your heart beats a little faster and you lean in and you're like, you know, and that was that story for me. And those threads, it keeps coming back. And so yesterday I was on Sunday, I was talking to some women and someone talked about this guy called Martin Prechtel, who's I think a Native American. And he talked about grief and praise and how in grief you find praise and in praise you find grief. And how important it is for these rituals of grief. And so I am holding those stories, and I don't know whether it's going to be entwined, because I really think that as a continent we need to weep. We need to weep for the children who were stolen as slaves. We need to weep for everything we've lost so that we can be free. And he talks about the catharsis of grief. And so I don't know where it's taking me, but I do know that that's a thread, and it's not a morbid thread. It's really about the medicine of grief and the medicine and how grief and joy live side by side and hold each other, and releasing grief releases us. And so I don't know yet what the work is in there, but yeah, it sits in my heart so strongly at this particular moment in time.
It's interesting. I kind of feel like I'm in a transition in my life at the moment where I'm letting go of a lot of cynicism and a lot of decisions I've made about my life, and kind of opening up to new possibilities. And in that, there's actually, I've always been attracted to kind of sad stories. And I agree with Philippa about the importance of grief and also the links between grief and joy, that there is a kind of a real sweetness when you allow yourself to grieve properly. But I suddenly feel as though I just want to concentrate on happiness and joy. And I think everything that's happening in the world at the moment seems so bleak and depressing. And sometimes I think on a personal level, it's quite selfish to just be enjoying one's own happiness. But at the same time, I kind of feel like I'm learning so much from all my past mistakes that maybe that it's funny, actually. There's two sides of me. There's the Western side, which is quite skeptical and questioning and unmagical. Realistic, I suppose you could say. And there's the Eastern side of me, which at some level knows that we create our own reality and that you can change reality by changing within yourself. And they're not always, they can't be present at the same time. Either one or the other. And that used to bother me, that there was a kind of inconsistency between those two things, because other people seemed to be consistent and I wasn't. And I always felt I had to choose one or the other side of me so I could be a consistent, real person. And now I realize that actually it's great to be able to adapt and to be one sometimes and one the other, and that my instincts tend to tell me when to be one and when to be the other. But right now I feel this huge kind of resurgence of just really wanting joy and happiness and connection with people, and feeling lucky actually that I found someone, the most unlikely person, that I feel a real fit with, almost like I've been obsessed with a story called Half Girl because of my half mixed race status and the fact that I've never felt I belonged in either one place or one culture and the other. And suddenly it almost feels like I found someone who makes me feel whole. So it's really interesting. And actually, I feel quite foolish admitting it because, you know, it's so against all the things I have said over the years. So anyway, there it is.
I would like to thank you all for your nice